Good evening, everybody. It is Monday, July 24th, 2023. It is just a minute past 9 p.m. now, which means it is time for the latest installment of Sports Talk Live. I am your host, as always, Nick Burt. Today, a little bit more packed show than what we've had in the past few weeks. We got the Women's World Cup going on, which is always a great addition. We have CFL Week 7 to recap. We have some more NFL uniforms to react to. The latest on the Mbappe transfer saga. And then to end this all off, we're going to do a movie review, which is something that's not really sports related, but it's something I did and I thought might as well talk about it because why not? It's my channel, my rules. I can do what I want, say mostly what I want. So, let's just get into this. So we will start the way we've started these past few episodes. Let's do some NFL uniform reactions or whatever you want to call these. First off, we do have the Tennessee Titans bringing back a somewhat fan favorite, somewhat very controversial jersey. That is the Houston Oilers throwback uniforms. Yes, the baby blue uniforms are coming back. They will be, I believe Tennessee's wearing them for 2 games this year. It's 1 or 2. I think it's 2. And, well, here you go. This is what they look like right here. Classic late 80s, early 90s Oilers look to these. They really have only updated it to today's template. I love the jersey. I love the uniforms. With all these teams bringing back these throwback uniforms, it shows that the NFL had a lot more like pop of color back then. Now it's just got all dulled down to like dark colors, which feels like a progression of a place that we're going, which I don't know. I think it's a bad idea. I like these bright, vibrant colors in uniforms. It's just a good look for the league. But yeah, so like I said, very controversial uniforms, given that, they're technically not theirs. Technically they are. Should say that. Technically they're theirs, but also not really. Now, yes, you could make the argument, hey, they could just be throwing back to the Tennessee Oilers of 98 and 99. Yeah, completely true. If they didn't do like the whole love ya blue, on the inside of the jersey or as the marketing campaign, which was a huge Houston thing. Everybody's like, well, the Texans should technically get the rights to this. Well, it's not their franchise. So, yes, I get technically why the Titans are doing it because it is their franchise history. And if we're honest, whenever Houston got awarded a new franchise, which was 2000, I know they came in the league in 2002. I think they were awarded the franchise in 99 or 2000. It was pretty much made clear from the start Oilers wasn't coming back. So, any argument of, well, the Texans should just be the Oilers, it was never happening. Even though theoretically probably should have. If you think about it, the Oilers moved 96, I believe, which was a year after the whole Browns-Ravens fiasco, which ended up with the Browns getting the legal rights to the name because they basically were guaranteed another franchise. I don't know if Houston had the same guarantees when the Oilers moved, which led them not to get that, I guess. getting back to it, these are amazing uniforms. It would be great to see them on the field this year. It's just it's a very complicated history with them. I like that it's the more newer Oilers uniforms compared to the last time the Oilers uniforms were out, which was for the AFL's 50th anniversary, I believe it was, when the Titans wore them. They had a home and away set, and that was with just the baby blue helmet and then the just plain white oil derrick on the helmets. There's nothing against those. Those were really good uniforms. But also, these are very good also. Now, getting into the next ones, the New York Jets came out with these uniforms, which is a throwback to the 1980s. Now, you may look at the uniforms and say, well, they look quite plain. Well, that's very true, but that's how uniforms looked in the 80s. It was basically a block number and maybe some shoulder stripes, and that's what the Jets had pulled off here. Now, what I'm kind of disappointed in is the fact that it's this throwback, I guess. I like it. I don't love it. Don't hate it. I like it. But you already have the green helmet with your normal uniforms. Like, I feel like we should have went maybe back to a white helmet as a throwback. I know, like, we're still in that time frame where it'd be kind of weird to throw back to that when it was kind of like you were just wearing that. I don't even know when the Jets changed that. I think is less than 5 years ago now, still. So, throwing back to something you already had, kind of weird. But I like the helmet logo on these. I think that's one of the best Jets logos of all time. It's also not their normal templated one, which is New York Jets with a football. I mean, that logo, it's boring. But, it's also somewhat a timeless logo. I like this one. Feel like it's more unique. It feels more 80s also. But overall, like I said, it's not a jersey I love. It's not a jersey I hate. Biggest thing is, just seeing Aaron Rodgers in a non-Packers jersey just still kind of feels weird. But, time moves on, and, he's going to be a Jet this year. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I believe they're also wearing these twice, so could be quite interesting this year. So given that, we are going to move to a different kind of football, of course, and that is your CFL Week 7 results and recap. So we started off on Thursday night. The Edmonton Elks, they lost again. They're now at 0-7. They lost to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers 28-14. Things just keep going from bad to worse, it seems, for the Elks. I don't know what the fix for them is. It's falling apart quite fast. Like I said, you probably should have spent money on a offensive line this offseason instead of, going out and getting like a star wide receiver. Actually, 2-star wide receivers. You should actually spent money on the O-line because O-line wins you games, so your quarterback's not under pressure every 5 seconds. Like I said, I don't know where the Elks go from here. I just feel like this is a train going straight down. It's not going great at all. I don't see them getting a win anytime soon the way they've been playing, unless they play Saskatchewan again, which I don't think is until October. Then on Friday, I believe it was, the Argonauts traveled to Hamilton, beat the Tiger Cats 31-15. They remain the only unbeaten team so far this season. I believe they are at 5-0 right now. 5-0 or 6-0. One of the two. They still have a 0 in the loss column. Should be interesting game for them this weekend. Probably not going to be close. They're probably going to dominate. But Chad Kelly is doing really great things in the CFL right now. I really like, his development. Came in that fourth quarter of the Grey Cup last year. Basically won them the game. And then you've just seen his development into a better and better CFL quarterback this whole season. So I'm really enjoying watching that. I'm just, obviously wish it was a different team that he was on. But can't complain, basically. I think he's doing a really good job. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now, and I have to give him credit for that. Saturday night, the Saskatchewan Roughriders traveled to BC on Watermelon Smash Night at BC Place. They get smashed, technically, 19-9. The first game of the Mason Fine era after the Trevor Harris, basically torn knee. Like, his knee's gone. Not really, but that's basically... It's a knee injury that's quite bad that he's out indefinitely, which means the whole season. The first game of the Mason Fine era, not great, not terrible. Could have been worse. Could have been a lot better. In the fourth quarter, he threw 2 key interceptions that basically took any chance of the Rough Riders winning that game out of play, which, it was just, he doesn't look like he's at that level yet, but he's been thrown into this position that he just has to get there. And the Lions played without Vernon Adams Jr. most of this game. He got injured in the first quarter, didn't come back. It seems like he should be back next week. I mean, we'll see with that. But, it's going to be a tough loss for BC if he doesn't come back next week. And then finally, on Sunday, so last night, the Ottawa Redblacks win in overtime. I put up Winnipeg Blue Bombers there, but it meant to be Calgary Stampeders. 43-41. Ottawa's second straight overtime win against a team from the West. Last week it was the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. This week it was Calgary Stampeders. Ottawa has really turned a corner these past few weeks with 2 really standout wins, I'd say. Both in overtime, like I said. According to the CFL, it's the first time a team has won back-to-back overtime games in the history of the league, which just baffles my mind. But if the CFL says it's true, it must be. But yeah, I've been really surprised with how the Red Blacks have played these last few weeks. They look quite good. I think we'll get to it right now. They are second in the East right now. They're at 500. That you can look at the rest of the East. It's really not a real competition, but that second spot in the East still gets a playoff game. So Ottawa looks in the driver's seat for that right now. Obviously, we are still early on in this season. We are actually, after this week, we are a third of the way through the regular season because we finished week 7. It's a 21-week season, so just had to do quick math there. But we are a third of the way through the season, and Ottawa looks at somewhat in the driver's seat right now, but things can obviously change. In the West, BC's still at top. We really haven't seen a change at all in the standings here. It's been BC, Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, Calgary, and Edmonton basically since week 3, I think. Week 3 or 4. That has been the order of the standings. I don't really see it changing anytime soon. I'm assuming that Calgary will jump Saskatchewan at some point. It's just a matter of when, not if, it seems. but BC and Winnipeg look like they're running away with the top two positions, as well as Toronto running away with the top position in the East. So given that, we will leave the Canadian gridiron and we will head, well, I guess technically over to Europe for a good old quick kick around the pitch. So Friday night we talked about how Mbappe might officially be for sale. It very much seems like he is open for a move right now. There are teams that are inquiring with PSG about him. Just off the top of my head, the ones that officially inquired were Al Hilal of Saudi Arabia, Real Madrid, of course, Barcelona, Chelsea, Man United, Tottenham, and I think Liverpool were the 7. Al Hilal put in a bid this morning, this in Eastern Standard Time, so it was probably around midday over there. Just looking for the number really quick because I do want to confirm. It was a 300 million euro bid from Al Hilal. Yes, 300 million euros. 300 million. That's world record by far. PSG, of course, have accepted the bid, but now it all comes down to, negotiating a contract with Mbappe for the club. I don't see him going to Saudi Arabia. It sounds like he would rather sit on the bench all year than go to Saudi Arabia. The deal with Saudi Arabia sounds like it would be like 700 or not 700. I don't remember the number, but it would be quite a large contract. I think it was in the 700 millions for 1 year, and then they'd let him leave on a free to go to Real Madrid in the summer of 2024, which the rumor is he's already signed a pre-contract agreement to already do that, given that his contract is up after this year. And you might be saying, after I named off those teams, wow, a team really doesn't sound like they fit in there. And yes, that is Tottenham. They don't have the money. They won't spend the money to get him. They clearly don't have 300 million euros. And it's basically been said that Mbappe has no interest in joining Tottenham, which completely understand, dude. I completely understand. It was a fun dream for 48 hours that you might possibly join us, but I understand your decision. So given that, that's the big news right now, rumor-wise. Obviously, we're getting closer and closer to the domestic season starting. And I think PSG probably want this figured out before they start their season. And, that's creeping towards us. Whether you know it or not, it is creeping towards us. So given that, we will, like I said, that was really the only big news over the weekend, is just talking about Mbappe and what possibly is coming for him, I guess. So we will move on. We will now go down under for the Women's World Cup. We might as well take a look at this also. It's been a while. We've had a lot of games played since this last show. We were on live during the USA game. They ended up winning that game 3-0. Not as high scoring as a lot of people thought, including myself. I thought they would probably win, 6 or 7-0, maybe 6 or 7-1. I don't know. Vietnam could have snuck one in, but did not happen. A lot of questions obviously were asked with that scoreline. I don't really think you can read anything into that game. The next game's the one that you should read more into. when they play the Netherlands, which will be on Wednesday during this show, of course. Then on Saturday, you had Japan just obliterating Zambia. Like I said in my preview for this tournament, Japan looked like a tournament winning team right now. You had England only getting a 1-0 win, basically hanging on for a 1-0 win, and that one goal was a clear-cut penalty, but they also couldn't. They could develop some things. They couldn't really develop a ton of chances, but I don't think there's reason to be worried there yet. Denmark get a huge win against China. I said that would be probably the first close game of this tournament. I think it ended up turning out well. Sweden sneaked past South Africa with the 90th minute goal. The Netherlands, which we talked about them with the U.S. group, of course, they beat Portugal 1-0 on Sunday. And then France and Jamaica tie 0-0. That was the second draw of the tournament, I should say. And then this morning, we had Italy with a goal in the 87th minute defeating Argentina. I said both of those teams could potentially be dark horses to make the semifinals if they get a correct draw. And then we had Germany. They get a 6-0 win against Morocco. Not looking good for my Morocco prediction of them getting out of the group, but hey, we tried. And then, of course, we have Brazil. They defeat Panama 4-0. Another just interesting game from them, to say the least. Brazil. Some games they look like they can win this tournament, and then some games they just look like they can't make it out of the group. So obviously they're playing a little bit of a weaker competition here, but they still looked quite good. They had some very nice goals. And given that, we will take a quick look at the schedule before Wednesday's show. So tonight we have Colombia facing off against South Korea. That should be another evenly matched game. That game kicks off in about 36 minutes. Should be another evenly matched game, hopefully. Then you have New Zealand and the Philippines. I'm expecting New Zealand to win that most likely. Then we have another game. Could be very evenly matched. The last game of the Tuesday slate. Switzerland facing off against Norway. I really like Norway in that one. They got to bounce back after that loss to New Zealand. And if they lose this game, they're obviously out, believe. But, once you lose your first game in a group stage when it's only 3 games, you have to get that second win. And I think Norway have a good shot of doing that tonight. And then Wednesday, it's a triple header before the USA plays at 9 p.m. You have Japan facing off against Costa Rica at 1 a.m., which probably will be another game where Japan show their power. You have Spain facing off against Zambia. Spain probably going to win by a few goals there. And then at 8 a.m., you have Canada facing off against Ireland in a very important game for both teams. So given that's going to be it for World Cup talk right now, just given that time zones just kind of suck for this World Cup. There's no getting around it, but they kind of do suck. So given that, we will move on to our final topic. As I said at the beginning of the show, this is not something I'm going to be normally doing. I don't do these because I leave that to the experts. They usually know what they're talking about. I don't. I rarely go to these places anymore. I rarely do go to the movies because there's just nothing good ever coming out. But this weekend, I did make the trip to the movies, bought a $18 popcorn and drink, which was way too expensive for it tasting like it came out of a bag from somewhere and not even popped. It tasted stale, but we are not here for popcorn talk or about how uncomfortable the seat was. We are here for a movie review. I was at the theater. It was a big weekend for movies. 2 major movies came out this weekend. It was, if you've been living under a rock, Barbie came out this weekend, which is not what I saw. And then you also had this other movie, Oppenheimer, came out this weekend. I went to Oppenheimer. It was a 3-hour movie. The first thing I will say about it, it's a 3-hour movie, but it feels like an hour and a half movie. That's how quick, I guess you would say, it feels. It does drag at some moments, but overall it felt fastly paced, like you weren't actually there for 3 hours. Like I said, beginning starts off a little slow. You're like, if this is going to be the whole movie, this is going to be the worst 3 hours of my life. But it doesn't. It gets very fast paced very quickly. Overall, I'm not going to go into great detail of plot lines and stuff because I'm not a person that wants to spoil it for other people who haven't potentially gone out and seen it. Just off point here, I read that I believe the two movies combined grossed like $400 something million worldwide, which was the 4th highest movie weekend ever in history, which I said this when I pulled in to the movie theater myself. I've never seen, I went to 11:30 showing also, so it was in the morning. I've never seen a movie theater parking lot that packed in a long time. These two movies are going to most likely, I'll say, save movie theaters in the short term, given all the people that are going to theaters to watch these two movies, basically. And then when I left 3.5 hours later, it was even more packed than it was at 11:30. So people were just pouring into the theater to see these two. But getting back to the movie, like I said, not going to go into any plot lines. If you know your history, you know the plot lines, basically. Just an absolutely outstanding acting performance from everybody that is in this film. Everybody had one of their best performances of all time. I won't say the best performance because I haven't seen all these people's work. But all of them combined had an absolutely outstanding performance. Christopher Nolan, the director, this is his, I don't even know what the word I'm looking for here. It's not crescendo. It's his magnum opus, maybe. His crowning achievement. This movie, absolutely stunning from a directorial point of view. The way it was done was just absolutely outstanding. I've seen one other Christopher Nolan movie, I think. So I'm not a huge, like I said, I'm not a huge movie person. So I usually leave these for the experts. But this, and I've seen other people say it, so that's why I'm saying it, that it's very much his best movie ever. It feels like a crescendo of all his other movies kind of combined. I did not say those words. I read that somewhere because, like I said, I haven't seen all his movies. The soundtrack for this movie, outstanding. Absolutely outstanding, this soundtrack. It's something I usually don't pay attention to in films. Like, it's just kind of background noise basically while you're trying to figure out what's happening in a movie. The soundtrack in this movie is absolutely outstanding. It helps the movie, it works together with the movie, I should say. One of the best soundtracks, I think, for a movie in quite a long time. I'm trying to even think back to a movie with that good of a soundtrack. It's probably the best war movie, I would say, since Saving Private Ryan. Obviously, it's a long ways away. I also said this is top 5 movie of this century, which that I said top 10 or top 5. It's somewhere in there. This, like I said, was an outstanding movie, and just everything from top to bottom felt like it was done perfectly. It remained mostly historically accurate, to my knowledge. It was just, some of the scenes were just absolutely amazing to watch. I just couldn't put it into words of how outstanding the film was done. I couldn't believe what I was watching at some points. It was just, like I keep saying absolutely amazing or outstanding. It's because I literally have no other words for it. That's how good it was. I know there are some people out there that said it wasn't that good, but those people are most likely wrong, because it was that good of a film. So I'm pretty sure you can guess my rating on this, but because, I don't want to be one of those people, oh, it's a 10 out of 10. I'll give it a 9.4. I'll give it a 9.4, because there were some parts that probably could have been cut out, that didn't really follow plot lines, but they didn't feel completely necessary. But overall, the good outweighed the bad of the movie, which gives it the 9.4. So given that's going to be it for tonight's show. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this show. We had a wide ranging of topics, so hopefully you enjoyed that. We'll be back on Wednesday. Women's World Cup will be talked about. Other than that, we have CFL power rankings, of course. Probably going to be some big change-ups this week. The U.S. will be playing at the World Cup at that time, so we might as well react to some of that. And yeah, we'll see what else comes out come Wednesday. So hopefully you like this video. If you stumble across it, like, subscribe, and we will see you back here on Wednesday for another edition of Sports.